5 seeds, they have Memphis, Alabama, BYU, and San Diego State. BYU's been a pretty big surprise this year. I think we could all agree with that, but we'll see if they can keep it up. I know some people don't think they're as good as some others. 6 seeds, they have Oklahoma, Clemson, Colorado State, and Utah State. 7 seeds, they have Florida Atlantic making it as a at large. Utah, Iowa State, and Villanova. At the 8th seed, they have St. John's, TCU, Ole Miss, and Texas A&M. As a 9 seed, they have Texas Tech, Mississippi State, Seton Hall, and Nevada. The 10 seeds, they have Nebraska, Northwestern, Michigan State, and South Carolina. At the 11 seed, as you know, they do the play-in and all that. For the 11 seed, they have Cincinnati out of the Big 12, Boise State, New Mexico, Grand Canyon, Wake Forest, and Oregon. And then the 12 seeds, they have Princeton, St. Mary's as an auto qualifier. How about that? They have them winning over Gonzaga. Indiana State and James Madison, all auto qualifiers, and all of these will be auto qualifiers. 13 seeds, they have McNeese State, led by Will Wade, UC Irvine, Samford, and Akron. 14 seeds, Drexel, High Point, Vermont, and Eastern Washington. Vermont seems to be a mainstay of March Madness. Not a fun team to play, that's for sure. 15 seeds, Oakland, Morehead State, Sam Houston State, and Colgate. And 16 seeds, they have St. Peter's, Denver, Eastern Kentucky, Southern out of the SWAC, Merrimack, and North Carolina Central. So that is your current look at what the bracket matrix thinks. It'll probably change tomorrow. I can't imagine anything dire changing from the time that this gets uploaded, but I know that was a lot in a short amount of time. And unless someone has anything to say about the bracket and any seeding problems that they have, I mean, I think Princeton could be an 11 seed realistically. I mean, they've been really impressive this year, but a 12 seed's fine as well. Nick, you got something to say?
Yeah, I mean, I just think it's important not to read too much into, what the experts are saying right now. We're just way too early in the year, and there's a lot to play out over the next 2.5 months. And I think, that goes without saying. But for instance, a team like South Carolina, I think they're 3-2 record in the SECs, and their 15-3 overall record is a little bit inflated. Their biggest out of conference wins are against Notre Dame and DePaul, if that means anything. Maybe Virginia Tech, if you want to count that, but those are three of the worst Power Five teams in college basketball. And then they have losses to Georgia at home, Clemson on the road, Alabama on the road by 27 points. I think this South Carolina team, for instance, is very unlikely to be in March when it's all said and done. So I think, that's just kind of a case study of how these things go. If the bracket were made today, a 15-3 team with an overinflated record like that would probably be in the tournament. But we're going to see a lot of movement these next few weeks and months, and I think we're going to see maybe a team like Gonzaga keep their streak. I would say that's my hot take. I think Gonzaga's out of most of these brackets with St. Mary's getting this auto qualifier from the WCC, but if Gonzaga can win out or potentially lose one more the rest of the way, they're going to have a strong case. And I think the bias of them being in the last 20 plus tournaments is going to make it hard for the committee to leave them out.
Yeah, I'll piggyback off that. I think it's an interesting take with Gonzaga. I think that it's a fair take. I think that there is a bias both in bracketology and the selection committee when it comes to that. When you look at kind of past performance and team brand, so I think that's interesting. A couple of things I'll highlight just on the bubble. I am a little biased, but I think that Colorado is trending up. They're not in a lot of brackets right now. They won 2 solid home games very convincingly this week. and they're headed on the road next week. They have not won a road game yet. I think now is the time when that changes. So I think look for them to show up on a couple more brackets. I think we're going to get a lot of updates. I think Lenardi will probably update tomorrow. So I think we'll get some updates. Look for them to move up a bit, and if they can prove that they can get some road wins, which I think they really need to, then they should show up on a couple of those. And also, I'd say to look out for a couple of Big 12 teams to really prove themselves down the stretch of the season and come up off that bubble. I'm specifically looking at Cincinnati and Kansas State to really get some convincing home wins and bring themselves off the bubble and solidly into the tournament.
Well, gentlemen, before we end this podcast, one last thing we need to address, and that is the team of the week. So individually, you have to have your team of the week. It's okay if you have the same one as someone else, because there have been some really good teams this week. So, Brett, let's start off with you, man. Who's your team of the week and why?
I'm going to go with Kentucky. This makes it a 2-week streak of picking a team of the week that I do not like. But I am a pessimistic fan overall. So that might be part of it, but also they got Big Z back. They looked phenomenal with him. There was a lot of talk early in the season from their fan base about, just wait until we get our bigs. And I was skeptical, but I think they really look like a top tier contender. And I think they had a very convincing week. So I think we'll see what Calipari can do with them if they can keep this momentum going forward.
My team of the week, out of the Atlantic 10 Conference, the Richmond Spiders. Not a team that is talked about very much, but they are quietly 5-0 in the A10. And they have some big wins on the road in the last week and a half, with a road win at Davidson, a road win at Duquesne, and a road win at Loyola Chicago. So they were all by very close margins. So I don't want to read too much into Richmond's performance these last couple of weeks, but I think they're a team to keep an eye on. They kept things close with some teams from big conferences like Florida, Wichita State, Colorado. So despite their lackluster overall resume, I think if they can keep things going in the next few weeks in A10 play, they could really come back into the national picture when it comes to potentially even fighting for an at-large bid.
I really desperately want to pick Auburn as my team of the week. It's hard not to, but I've said all that I need to say about them today. I'm gonna do what Brett did, and I'm gonna give the team of the week to a team that I also don't like very much, and that's the Tennessee Volunteers. They look like, this team looks legit. Dalton Connect is amazing. They just torched the two teams they played this week. I mean, yes, they were against unranked conference opponents at home in Florida and in Alabama. Beat Florida by 19, beat Bama by 20. I didn't watch the Alabama game, but I listened to it on the radio a little bit. I think I think I was listening to the Tennessee broadcast, and their radio announcers, I think they said Tennessee had like a 26-27, somewhere around a 30-point lead at one point in the game. They look absolutely dominant, and this top tier of the SEC is going to be really exciting to watch throughout the rest of January and February going into the conference tournament. It's going to, one slip up and you could lose your bye in the first round of the SEC tournament. It's going to be crucial to win that, get that auto bid, raise your stock a bit in the bracketology. But this is one of the better Tennessee teams that I've seen in years. Like, I don't know how much this will translate into the tournament, but right now they look awesome.
So I'm just going to piggyback off Payne here because I do also hate Tennessee, but just watching their 2 games this week and really watching what they did to Alabama was just super impressive. I believe they had Tennessee had Bama at almost their turnovers per game in the first half. Like, and Bama, I believe, was the number 1 offense on KenPom, and they in the half court they could not do anything. Tennessee just had them bottled up, and that was they beat Bama by 20 with Dalton Connect not really having a super efficient game either, and he still had 25. So just like you said, they were up 30, and Bama is not as super team this year, but they're still a really good team. And just watching what they did to Bama was eye-opening, to say the least. And then that Florida win was also just pretty impressive. So I'll say Tennessee also.
So mine, if you can believe it, is going to be out of the blue. You'll never guess it. I'm happy none of y'all did. What do you know about the Bradley Braves? Well, let me tell you about the Bradley Braves. How about this? They were on the road at Southern Illinois, was down 23 points on Wednesday. Came back and won 70-69. Then yesterday, facing Belmont, who's also in Nashville. Shout out to them. Belmont, Bradley just beat Belmont 95-72. They are quietly 6-2 in conference play in the Missouri Valley Conference, and they're 14-5 on an 8-game winning streak. And they have a really big game on Wednesday, hosting Murray State, who is one of their conference losses, but that was back in November, like one of the last days of November. And they also lost to Indiana State, who's been very good as well. So I'm very proud to say that the Bradley Braves are my team of the week.
Yeah, piggybacking on Bradley, there's a reason they are as hot as they are right now. And I think I've talked to TP about this a little bit. I might have talked to Nick about it also. I'm a Bradley Braves enjoyer for life for one reason and one reason alone. And if you can't tell by the flag behind me, I'm a massive Cubs fan. And one of my favorite Cubs players went to Bradley, and that is Mike Tauchman. They inducted Mike Tauchman into their Bradley Sports Hall of Fame on Saturday. Had a big win. Is that a coincidence? You tell me. But Mike Tauchman had a massive impact for the Cubs this year, and I think he's going to have a massive impact for his Bradley Braves basketball team this season.
Well, good. I didn't expect Mike Tauchman mentions in this podcast today,
You
but
knew I'm going to mention Mike Tauchman at some point. Basically every time I talk about sports, I would die for Mike Tauchman.
yeah, I know you do love Mike Tauchman, and Bradley is in Illinois. Fun fact. So anyway, I think it's time that we wrap up this show. And gentlemen, I'll leave the floor open for any closing remarks as we head out this podcast. I'd like to say once again, thank you to Josh for stepping in for Jackson. Jackson, we look forward to having you back on the podcast. I think we have some upcoming things to look forward to with the podcast. I think we're going to do some live game watching. I know that's been discussion where we could be on Zoom, where some of these guys live closer than others and may watch it together, may film it. Whatever that case is, we'll be sure to let you know on our Twitter and YouTube channel. And you can listen to the Restricted Area Podcast wherever you get your podcasts. I know it's on Spotify. I'm not sure about Apple yet, but I do know for a fact it is on Spotify, and it's also on YouTube. So please give us a follow on YouTube if you haven't had the chance. And guys, would you like anything else to say before we close out this episode?
Get ready to watch some college basketball, buddy.
Yes, sir.
And fire Kenny Payne, buddy.
Well, there you go, and fire the DePaul coach. So
As John Rothstein might say, I'm buying stock in Big Z from Kentucky.
Auburn basketball, welcome to the jungle.
Well, I'm happy we were able to close this show out with some John Rothstein quotes. But nevertheless, been a great episode. Try to keep it a little bit shorter. I think we did a good job.